The Islanders have found their next star, and no, I am not talking about Matthew Schaefer, although I do believe he will be a star in this league. Training camp has officially begun for the New York Islanders today, and all eyes are going to be on Maxim Shabanov, who I believe is going to be a star for the New York Islanders this season. Yes, it is still early. There are still obstacles he is going to have to overcome. Rookie camp was just the first test of many for Maxim Shabanov, but I really believe, based on what we've seen so far from this player and what other people are saying about this player, that this is going to work out really well for the New York Islanders. I think they really hit with this Russian free agency signing, something that you don't always see. One thing we are going to talk about in this video, it's been a real mixed bag between players coming to the NHL on whether or not they translate all that well. And just based on parts of Maxim Shabanov's game, I believe this is going to work out really well for the Islanders. But I'd love to know what you think in the comments below. Really quickly, our goal is 2,000 subscribers before the first game for the New York Islanders this season. A game where I fully expect Maxim Shabanov to be playing on the top six for the New York Islanders. We'll see exactly what happens. Again, Patrick Waugh has made it very clear he's going to try a lot of things with these lines, but early on, he's already committed to at least trying Shabanov in some sense in a top 9 role by naming him as a starter on the first line for the first day of training camp. And keep in mind, this is the first day of training camp. This is going to move around a lot, especially considering how disastrous the Islanders' offense was last season. It makes a lot of sense that two of the guys currently listed on the first line for this training camp are players who were not on the team last season. But the big takeaway here is I think Patrick Waugh has a lot of trust in this player. I think he's very high on Shabanov, and I think he at least thinks there is a lot of potential when it comes to his game. And a quote about Shabanov, Patrick Waugh says, "I was watching a lot of clips of Shabanov when he was in the playoffs against a former player of mine, Alexander Radulov, and they lost in the final, but he was playing really well. I mean, he's a small player, but I feel like he doesn't know he's small." So that's pretty intriguing for me. And I think for everyone here, because we're curious to see him, how he's going to bring his skills in everything. And in other quotes from Patrick Waugh, you tell right away how clearly everybody recognizes the skill of Maxim Shabanov. It's really hard to compare players when it comes to just how skilled they are with the puck, but this is a player who a lot of fans are wondering what he is in comparison to Maxim Siplakov, who was the Islanders' Russian free agent from last year. And the simplest answer is this is a player, when controlling the puck, his stick handling is way closer to players such as Mathew Barzal. Somebody even went as far to say as he looks like Kucherov out there. And he does have certain no-look aspects to his game, those no-look touch passes, the way he handles the puck so efficiently. That does remind you of Nikita Kucherov. I'm not saying Maxim Shabanov is going to be Nikita Kucherov, but for this to be a success for the Islanders, it doesn't have to be one of those extreme success stories such as Artemi Panarin, Nikita Kucherov, or other players like Kirill Kaprizov. The Islanders need more star talent in their top six, and I truly believe Shabanov is the best hope at getting that. I really think he is that player that they are looking for. When we look at the Islanders' offense last season, it was not a very deep offense. If anything, it's a little deeper this season, but instead of depth, they were really focused on 3 players, those being Bo Horvat, Mathew Barzal, and Brock Nelson. Now, with Brock Nelson gone, in addition to Noah Dobson, who was another key offensive contributor for this team, no longer being on the team, you really need a new star to step up. And I think Shabanov is a perfect, if there's going to be somebody who does step up, it is going to be this player. You're not going to get more out of Anders Lee. You're definitely not going to get more out of Kyle Palmieri. Holmstrom, while I do think there is a bit more to his game, I don't know if he's a definitive top 6 player. I think he's more a guy who can play on your second line if you're not all too deep. But if you're a true contending team, I think Holmstrom is a key member of your third line, and that's great. But the Islanders need a top-line winger, and I truly think Shabanov is that player, not just for this season, but in the long term. The Islanders do have a need in right wing, and I think he is going to be a big player moving forward. We're going to talk about why now, when we really compare him to some other players who have come from the KHL. Looking at his season last year, it was very impressive. And one thing I am noting also when it comes to Maxim Shabanov is there's a lot of questions on how he's going to handle the physicality. At this point, I think this is the only question left. I think based on the skill that he showed, the skating ability that he showed in rookie camp, being way closer to a Matthew Schaefer than any of the other prospects, this is a player who has a lot of speed in his game. He showed early, and again, it was rookie camp. I understand that aspect of it, but he's shown early that he can get lost in drills and be very elusive in how quickly he can get the puck and move it. So really, the skill is clearly there when it comes to this player. Sometimes when it comes to the points in the KHL, players are holding onto the puck way too long, and that's why they simply don't translate to the north-south game of the NHL. It's clear to me watching Maxim Shabanov, this is a north-south player. It's a player who likes to get lost on the rush, a player who likes to get the puck and put it on the net very quickly rather than getting it, receiving, looking up, and looking for the perfect shot. He gets the puck quickly and he puts it exactly where he wants to put it. It is an NHL caliber shot. What I'm trying to say is at this point, the offensive skill is there, and more importantly, if you really watch the way he played in the KHL, as flashy as he is, Patrick Waugh commented on this when the signing first happened, he's also really impressed with the defensive side of this game. This is a player who's not afraid to block a shot. This is a player who's not afraid to really do what he needs to do to get the puck back from the defensive end, to really generate offense from defense. You can see that with his playoff numbers, where he was not a player who had a ton of numbers in the regular season and then trailed off in the playoffs. The KHL playoffs are way more competitive, and he still put up 20 points in 21 games, 10 goals, 10 assists. In the regular season, he had 67 points. He's a highly skilled player. The big question now is how he handles body contact. And we're going to have to see how he handles the full grind of an NHL season. But early on, just based on what this player has done in the past, I know he's a smaller guy. But until he shows anything to be concerned about, I think he is going to hit. I think he's going to be a star. And one of the big reasons why is if you look at his last 3 seasons in the KHL, he barely misses a game. It's a player who has not been injured. And that's notable because the KHL, while it is not the NHL, is one of these best hockey leagues in the NHL. It might not be as physical, but it is very physical, and he's not missing really any games. He's the top target on his team for other teams to take out of the game. They have not been able to do that. You watch the way he plays, especially in those KHL playoff games. He plays with some grit in his game. He's really a player where he's not afraid of the contact. And when we talk about small players who don't tend to work well in the NHL, it's those players who are afraid to go into the corner. While I'm not saying corner battles are the strength of his game, he is not afraid to retrieve a puck. He's not afraid to take a hit to score a goal in front of the net. And that is a really positive sign for me in terms of Shabanov. Now, a lot of fans are kind of tempering their expectations based on Siplikov. I think some of us had hopes that he would have been a bigger goal scorer in the NHL last season. And for the record, I don't think putting up 10 goals and 25 assists in the NHL last season for Siplikov was a failure. In fact, I do think there is more to this player. One thing I do want to point out quickly when comparing Shabanov to Siplikov, and this is one of the big reasons why I think we are going to get a star this year for the New York Islanders, is Siplikov's last season in the KHL was not nearly as successful as Shabanov's, and he was older when he put up that season. Now, obviously, Siplikov is a bigger player, and in that sense, it made the physical transition to the NHL game a lot easier. But on the other hand, Siplikov is also a player, I think, who really worked a lot when it comes to east-west, holding onto the puck. And as a result, he really had to learn a different style of game. And I don't think that's going to be the same case with Shabanov. I think Shabanov is way closer to an Artemi Panarin type player than a Maxim Siplikov, just based on the style of game they play. And while Panarin is a bigger player, he's one of the few examples I'm going to go through now where players like this have worked in the past. And I also have an example of a player who did not work quite well. I'm going to explain why I don't think Shabanov really fits that mold, because I know a lot of people are throwing around this name. But quickly looking at Panarin, his last season before he went to the when he went from the KHL to the Chicago Blackhawks, where he had instant chemistry with Patrick Kane, he had in 54 games in the KHL, he had put up 62 points. And it's notable here when talking about Panarin, a player who I would argue, while he works obviously in the NHL, he's a player who doesn't handle contact as well as Shabanov. He's missing more games in the KHL in those 2 seasons compared to Shabanov, who really did not miss many games at all. Now, another player who has been thrown around a lot, and this is a player who really struggled to adjust to the NHL, ended up going back to the KHL, is Nikita Gusev. Everybody remembers that saga from the New Jersey Devils. They were really comparing him to being the next Panarin. He had a ridiculous amount of points in the KHL, and things didn't quite work out. He had 44 points in 66 games for the Devils, and the reason why I think he's getting compared so much to Shabanov is Gusev is a player who also is undersized. He's 1 inch taller than Shabanov, or I think they're about the same size. But with Gusev, things did not work out, and I think a lot of critics of the Islanders, really, honestly, it's a lot of teams who, fans who did not land Shabanov and now are trying to say, oh, well, he's not going to work out anyway, so who cares? For the record, Gusev worked in the first season in the NHL. The big issue with Gusev was never that he could not put up points in an NHL game. That he had no problem doing. In 66 games for the New Jersey Devils, he put up 44 points. And if Shabanov does that on the New York Islanders, that will be considered a really good success. I'd definitely put him in one of the top 3 point producers for the team if he does that over a full season, which would be about 55 or so points. The big issue with Gusev was he could not play defensively, and when coaches tried to get him to play a more defensive game, he really couldn't put his game together. The issue with Gusev is when you moved him down to a third line and he wasn't playing with your top players, he was pretty much useless. And this definitely is not the case with Shabanov. He's a player who, again, early on is showing a lot of defensive capability, one, and also more, I think he's showing a little bit more offensive ability in the sense where it's going to translate into the NHL game. Gusev is an incredible player, but if you remember him, he tends to hold on to the puck way too long, which is something you're not going to see with Maxim Shabanov. One more player I thought would be fun to bring up because people are all talking about Kirill Kaprizov is... sorry. People are talking about Kirill Kaprizov. Kirill Kaprizov is another player who came from the KHL to the NHL. And this is a player I think is very interesting because we've talked about on the channel. I would be super excited if Kirill Kaprizov hits free agency and the Islanders could make a bid on him. But a lot of you pointed out how expensive that would be and how spending that type of money on one player might not be ideal for the Islanders. And I'm not saying I think Maxim Shabanov is going to be the next Kirill Kaprizov. But if he can be 80% of Panarin, Kirill Kaprizov, Nikita Kucherov, these guys that he is getting some comparisons to. If he can be a player who can be the next star on the Islanders that puts up 70 or so points per season, this would be a huge win for the New York Islanders. And based on the KHL stats, based on the offense that he put up in the KHL, putting up 67 points in his final season with the KHL, this is something that can happen. You can see Shabanov, based on these other players that we are looking at here, we can see Shabanov putting up maybe 0.75 of a point per game, if not more. I'm not trying to put too much pressure on the player. Obviously, I'm calling him. I do believe he is going to be a star for the New York Islanders, but, you know, it just feels like this is going to work. And let me know in the comments what you think. Are you more critical of Shabanov? I totally understand people looking at his size and thinking this is not going to work. But for me, when it comes to a small player, until I see plays where you're not going into the corner, plays where you're going down and not getting up, I don't think it's fair to criticize players for being smaller. I mean, we've seen players in the NHL have very successful careers who are not that tall. I mean, just look at Brad Marchand. I don't think anybody's talking about him saying he's too small to play hockey. I'd love to know your thoughts on Shabanov in the comments below. Again, I do think he is a star. Perhaps I am just drinking the Kool-Aid that was the rookie camp for the New York Islanders, but I am super excited for this player and super excited to see what he looks like finally playing in training camp with other NHL players. As always, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. I'm Patrick Nilan. I'm your host. Catch you on the next episode of Islanders Digest. Let's go, Islanders.